Get ready to be inspired by the great things happening in rural education. The Rural Scoop will bring you new ideas and innovative solutions. We'll dive into education issues and we'll highlight what's working in your rural communities. You will hear from a variety of educators, administrators, professionals, and others who will provide relevant and engaging content in each episode. And now, serving up the scoop, here's your host, Dr. Melissa Sadorf.
Well, I am super excited to be able to talk to one of the Arizona Rural Schools Association's newest sponsors, platinum sponsor Play It Safe, and Jordan Lind, who's going to be talking with us today about all things playgrounds here in Arizona. So Jordan, welcome. I'm so excited to be able to talk with you today and learn more about you and your company and your impact on rural schools across the state.
Well, Melissa, thank you for the invitation. We're thrilled to be a part and the fact that we could be the platinum sponsor, and we're just thrilled to be able to work with you. And, playgrounds is near and dear to my heart. So it's fun to be able to not only provide playgrounds across the state, but also be on your podcast and talk to you and all your listeners.
Well, appreciate that. Well, let's start by having you do an introduction of who you are and your background, and how did you come to where you are today?
Great question. So first, I am born and raised here in Arizona. Been here a long, long time. And I didn't think playgrounds were going to be any part of my life. I was 30 years old, and I was in the paper and printing industry up to then, as far as you can get away from playgrounds. And a good friend of mine approached me, and he said, "Hey, I sell playgrounds." I knew he sold playgrounds, but I didn't know much about it. He goes, "I sell playgrounds in Arizona. Do you want to come on board?" I'm like, "No." I mean, it didn't seem like a thing. I'm like, who buys a playground? A school here and there. That's it. And I told him no. And then he approached me about 3 months later. He's like, "Hey, listen, I think you'd really enjoy this. I'm having fun doing it. I really want you on my team." Like, okay, let's do this. And literally the rest really was history. I got to see just how big of an industry playgrounds were. And what was really special about it, the type of customers we had, the school industry, the park and rec industry, the HO industry, all these industries that really catered around families and children. And I've got 7 kids, so that was near and dear to my heart. So I worked with this gentleman for 15 years with his company, and then he lost a battle with cancer. And at that point, I sort of was at a fork in the road and decided to go and start my own company, doing the same thing. And that's when I started Play It Safe Playgrounds, and that was in 2012. And we've grown from just me working literally out of my bedroom to now we've got, a big 5,000 square foot office, 13 employees. We've got sales teams all over Arizona and in Southern Nevada as well. And it's really been pretty special. Honestly, it's been a lot of fun. And like I said, being able to provide playgrounds for kids and seeing the joy and the benefits of it for these kids it's so fulfilling.
And you've been in business since 1998.
In the playground industry since 1998, yes.
Which means that you've not only gone through the pandemic when everyone was inside, but you've also seen playground trends that have impacted the industry. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, some of the trends that have come and gone throughout the last, 25 years now, I think. You see all types of things. You see themed playgrounds. You see playgrounds that are geared towards fitness, which has always been a big thing really over the last 10 years. And it's been really, really neat to see people catering towards, and playground companies catering to inclusivity and being very intentional about it. 10 years, 15 years ago, playgrounds all had to be compliant, ADA compliant. And that was a good thing. But the playground companies really started leaning into that and say, what can we do above and beyond being ADA accessible? How can we really bring the kids together? Not just have a portion over here for a child that may be in a wheelchair or on crutches or but what can we do to pull all kids of all abilities together to play? And for me, as far as the trend goes, that's been very, very special. So,
what about innovations around safety? Because I know that there's been an increased focus on safety. I was previously, as a teacher, I was a PE teacher. And so the fitness part of what you're talking about is something that I actually had on my campus, and my students were able to participate in some of the physical challenges. And there was always obviously a very big concern around safety and making sure that children were safe as they were taking advantage of the equipment. What does that trend look like?
Well, the safety standards that all the playground companies, all the, I'd say commercial playground companies follow are your CPSC and ASTM driven guidelines. And so all the manufacturers really champion that and make sure that the playgrounds are designed to meet all those factors. There's the things that they don't really encompass, though, that when we as a representative go out to a site, we look at a site and we start thinking about things like line of visibility. Are the teachers going to be able to see the kids from where they stand throughout the entire playground? Or something that not a lot of people think about, location of swings. Put the swings towards the back of the playground because you don't want kids running past swings as they're swinging back and forth to get to a climber or to an exciting event. So there's those things that may not be listed in the safety guidelines that we try to bring to people's attention. Type of surfacing that might not lend themselves to the environment around them that could be a safety hazard. Even though they may be compliant, they may not be appropriate for that particular setting. So those are the types of things we try to look at and talk about because we already know whatever equipment that goes in the playground is going to be safe. So we try to think outside of the box a little bit.
Sure. But now, and this is a question that I'm asking as a former PE teacher. What's the role of playgrounds in development of and well-being of children, especially those that are taking advantage of the equipment on a school ground?
Well, it's funny because, playgrounds weren't a thing until the early 1900s. And the reason they even developed playgrounds is because kids were vandalizing the city and they wanted a place to get the kids to be so they weren't vandalizing the local city. So they started creating these climbers that were wildly unsafe, but they didn't care. They just wanted the kids out of their hair. And I think, a lot of times we inadvertently sort of have that same mentality. Let's just get the kids out on the playgrounds, get them out of our hair, let them do their thing. The playgrounds play such a huge role in development. And I know, you know that. There's a lot of people that know that, but we sort of I think we sometimes lose focus of the real purpose of them, other than just being a cool place to go. I mean, Mr. Rogers said play gives children a chance to practice what they're learning. Mm-hmm. So they're taking what they're learning in the classroom, and now they're going out into the playground that while there's supervision out there, it's still largely unstructured play. And they're learning how to be social with each other, how to cooperate, how to play with another child, how to communicate with them. They even learn some hierarchy in senses. They get to test the boundaries of social norms, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. They get to be physical out there, go out there and try things they've never tried before. There's something we call perceived risk out on a playground where something is safe. It means guidelines, but to a child that's, 3 feet tall, I mean, that playground looks like a mountain to them, looks like Mount Everest. And for them to climb to the next, up the climber, up to the next level and go down a really tall slide, that's a huge achievement for them. And that builds up their confidence. So there's a lot of such positive things that come out of a playground that can happen out there. We really like to emphasize those things and not just focus on, hey, you're getting a place for the kids to go, but no, this is benefiting the kids in many ways. The colors of the playground play into the importance of play because different colors stimulate different emotions. So we want to make sure that we're putting the right color combination out there that's going to stimulate positive emotions. We know when we exercise as adults, it releases endorphins to us. It does the same thing for a child. And endorphins reduce stress. They improve the mood. So when they come back into the classroom after a nice, 45-minute session of going out and getting crazy, they're going to come out less stressed, better mood, and more able to learn and saturate the information that the teachers are really sharing with them.
That is so true. And that was one of the things that I was focused on as a teacher was students that are healthy learn better, for sure.
Yes.
And playgrounds play a big role in ensuring that that's happening.
For sure. And I totally agree.
So you mentioned earlier that there's different kinds of playgrounds, themed playgrounds, I think is what you call them.
Oh, yeah.
And so two of the ones that I've read about are natural playgrounds and then adventure playgrounds. What exactly are themed playgrounds? And then how do those support the growth of children?
Awesome question. And it's an interesting thing with themed playgrounds because you're trying to bring an element that kids aren't that familiar with into their environment. Maybe it's a rocket ship. Maybe it's a train themed playground, nature, a forest, a treehouse, different themes. That's something that they may not be able to experience on a day-to-day scenario. And I think of rural schools. I tend to think of schools that may be, Payson, Prescott, Flagstaff, that are surrounded by trees. And I think, well, gosh, what would be cool in there? You could bring in a treehouse style playground, but that's something that's already part of their environment. Maybe it'd be neater to bring in a rocket ship into the middle of the forest or wherever they may be. That's sort of a contrast to what they're already experiencing day to day. So for me, theming is bringing something that they wouldn't normally see into their play space to really develop their sense of adventure, to get their thinking going, all their senses firing, to get their imagination flowing. Those are things that we want to have to happen out on the playground. Now, if the playground is the same as they're seeing everywhere else, they may not get that. So for me, sometimes it's a trend, sometimes it's not. In an urban area, I definitely want to bring in that one that looks like a tree fort or like a forest. For me, that's the perfect place for that in an urban setting. So, but it really depends. It depends on the setting and what the environment is.
What kinds of materials are you bringing in also? Because I'm sure that plays a big part in what the setup eventually is going to be that is rolled out.
A lot of playgrounds are the standard steel, plastics, they're vinyl coated or powder coated. And I think that's the majority of what you're going to see out there. There's some that are concrete based, so they can make theme a little bit more imaginatively out there. But you're going to see primarily most of the playgrounds that are steel posts, steel decks, the vinyl coating, and plastics. Almost 90% of them are that out in the public today.
Jordan, talk to me a little bit about some of the common misconceptions that people might have about playgrounds. I mean, I didn't know that they were to keep hooligans off the streets in urban areas. But what are some of those misconceptions that you have to address?
Well, and I think that's probably, the biggest ones. The other ones that we deal with too is misconceptions about what's safe and not safe. And unfortunately, we've seen a bit of a trend in certain areas where motion is being taken out of playgrounds. Risk management getting involved, and they'll say swings aren't safe. Now, do kids get injured on swings? Yes, they do. Do they get injured off of slides? Yes, they do. Kids will get injured. And there's no way around it. Kids get injured in their house. I mean, I don't know how many times my kids went tumbling down the stairs when they're learning to walk. We didn't take the stairs out. We taught them how to go up and down the stairs. And even as adults, I mean, I've tumbled down my own stairs. It happens. We want to make sure on the playground that, this sounds really morbid, but we want to make sure that if they have an accident, that it's not going to be a life-threatening accident. We know there's going to be bumps, bruises, broken bones sometimes. Those things will happen in life. I mean, and that is part of life. We try to reduce as much as possible. But unfortunately, that becomes a driver for taking items off the playground that are essential for children to be able to grow. I mean, the things that we learn swinging, body coordination, core strength, things like that need to happen or essential for a child's development get removed out of fear. So I think the biggest misconceptions right now is risky play equals injury equals litigation equals get it off the playground. And we need to make sure we're making choices for the kids, not for what could happen if a parent gets too upset. Those things are going to happen anyway. So, and hopefully I didn't take that down a road you didn't want to go down, but it's the reality of what we see every day.
Sure.
And I think it's important for us to, keep in mind that these things are needed for kids. Spinners are needed. Maybe it's not the best thing to go on after lunch, but they're needed. They do things for kids that they won't get. And I would think especially for rural schools more than anything else, because a rural school needs to be all things to all kids, because they may not have a community park to go to for their physical needs, like the fitness needs. So to have a playground that's got some fitness items on it, to have a playground that's got motion on it, to have a playground that is inclusive is probably more crucial to a rural school than it's going to be to an urban school.
Well said. And to that point, do you have any success stories of a misconception that you were able to overcome with a community that was putting in a playground that maybe because of the misunderstandings, they were hesitant or reluctant, but you were able to walk them through the benefits of a particular type of structure?
We've had multiple, and that's a great question. And it's also a tricky question. Because we like to give information, but then let our partners that we're working with make their own decision. We never want to impose, even though we've got our set of beliefs and thoughts regarding something. Ultimately, we need to leave that in the hands of our partner, whoever we're working with, to build the playground to make that decision. Some of the bigger success stories, though, have been transitioning the safety surfacing from sand to engineered wood fiber. And that's been a big thing, because we all grew up playing in sand.
Yep.
Sand is great. We love sand. You can do so much in sand. It's fairly soft to fall on, but it does have some negative things as well. Every surfacing sort of does. But as far as fall height from a tall platform, sand is not a great surfacing to fall on. We know cats and dogs love it as a bathroom place. So it gets unhealthy there. But also in Arizona, it just radiates the heat so much. And if we can come in there and say, listen, we have a surfacing about the same price that's going to be cooler. The cats and dogs aren't attracted to it. Insects really aren't an issue in it. And it's also ADA accessible if maintained. That is what we try to educate people with, because it makes a big difference in the school to say, hey, I went from a sand surfacing where my playground is not accessible to now a wood fiber surfacing where my playground is accessible and cooler and safer. But again, we as humans sort of like to stick to what we know. And, we've all known sand our entire life.
Yeah.
But so it's just re-educating. And some people say, no, we want to stick with sand, and we respect that. It's okay. We've given you information and you've made your choice, and that's fine. But we just try to make sure everybody's informed and has the same information out there.
So Jordan, you mentioned accessibility and ADA compliance a couple of different times. What does your company need to think about when they're developing a playground to ensure that it's inclusive and accessible for all children, including those with disabilities?
Great question. That really comes down to communication, to find out what the school's needs are and really sort of dig into that and ask them, who are you seeing the needs for? Or do you have children with autism? Do you have a class for children that have autism that you really want to make sure that they have a good playing environment for? Do you have children with wheelchairs? Do you anticipate having children with wheelchairs? Do we need to make sure that you've got ramps instead of just stairs on this playground? One of the biggest things when we're talking about a location of a playground too is we may provide a playground that's fully accessible, just absolutely caters to everybody, but there's no path to it from the school. It's out in the middle of the field somewhere, and nobody thought about putting in a sidewalk from the school to the playground. And that'll happen frequently if we're not intentional about talking about it, making it part of the conversation.
Yep.
So
one of the game changers for rural education has been including technology in everything that we do. And I'm sure that that's no different than your industry as well. So how's technology being integrated into playgrounds, and how does that impact what you're able to provide?
It has made an impact. I mean, on the manufacturing end, a huge impact. I mean, they're able to get equipment out faster and more accurately now, more than ever, but in a way that you wouldn't think. And music play now is better than it's ever been in the past, because we've got machinery that can create. Well, let me back up. In the past, when you saw maybe some chimes on a playground or bells on a playground, they didn't sound that great. They were just pretty clunky sounding. These days, we're creating chimes and different music instruments that come already tuned. And you may get different types of bells, different types of chimes already pre-tuned, so there's no bad notes. And if the kids get on them, they can actually play songs with one another because they're perfectly tuned. And we can only do that through technology, being able to cut things and insert things at a certain tension to give a certain note. So as far as technology goes, again, in a way you wouldn't think that would be beneficial for kids, but to be able to take your music class now outdoors, and children that might have music abilities or would like to practice some music abilities, they can now do it on the playground and actually play on instruments that have real accurate notes on multiple things, one next to each other. So to me, that's been a really cool function and product of technology within our industry.
What about the design of them? Is there any design elements besides the musical aspect of them that technology utilizes?
Well, just they're very whimsical looking. I will say that. And because we're able to cut things in patterns and ways that we've never been able to do in the past, you've got very whimsical, almost Alice in Wonderland looking instruments that you can play on that really inspires kids' imaginations.
Has it been able to up the game as far as safety goes as well?
It's when they're designing these things, they have to make sure that they're safety compliant. I don't know that it ups the games, but I think it creates an environment for those kids that may be risk adverse for them to go and play on something that is comfortable for them. They may not want to go and do all the climbing and get crazy with the slides. They may just have a version of that, and that's okay. So now we've got a spot for them to go and be safe and have fun and enjoy themselves on the playground socially without going to an area that they're not comfortable with.
And now a word from our sponsor. So, Jordan, after such a long time in the industry, I know that you've had some really challenging and interesting installs in your career. And a few of them have been in pretty remote places in our rural school communities. Can you share some of the more memorable projects that you've worked on?
Sure. So I'll share the first one was we did in White River. And the thing that was really cool about that, and especially when we're talking in a rural sense, they did not have a community park. So at the school there, we developed 3 different playgrounds for different age groups. And we had to take everything into account, everything, the accessibility, the types of play, shade, physical play. And we put in, I wish I could show you pictures. It was just an amazing area of 3 unique playgrounds that catered to, again, the different age groups, the different needs. To make sure, and we had accessible areas, we had areas for children with autism, we had the areas for put in a Ninja Warrior obstacle course. So being able to fulfill the needs for the community at that school in such a remote area, that was really, really cool. But as far as a toughest location, it was at the bottom of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, that's pretty tough.
Well, and the tough part is, so the first time we went to go look at the location, they flew us down in a helicopter, and they have multiple helicopters going in and out every day. So we went down in the morning, went and measured the site, looked at it, and then we had to hang out there until like 3 o'clock in the afternoon when the helicopter was leaving. And once we actually got the job, we had to helicopter in all of our materials. And then every day, our guys had to be helicoptered in and out every single day. So as far as a tough location, having to make sure all of your details are ironed out beforehand, it was interesting. And there was dynamics down there, that we had to deal with regarding governmental dynamics that we had to be aware of, tribal dynamics that we had to be sensitive to. There was a lot of things that we had to really take into account for that and be sensitive to that made it a special job. I don't want to say it was a difficult job. It was just, we really had to make sure that we were intentional about every single detail on that job. But it was quite something. And I'd never been on a helicopter before, ever. And to take that, and it wasn't a sightseeing helicopter. These are the guys that are in and out every day, and they want to be quick about getting in and out. So, I mean, they were skirting the walls of the canyon to get down in there and going through these narrow canyons to get to the area. And it was quite interesting. But what was neat about it, these kids didn't have a playground, and these are kids. The only way in or out of this village is either by helicopter, or I think they said that the hike out is like a 7-mile hike. It's something incredible. And you've got to do it by burro. So a lot of these kids have never been on playgrounds. They'd never been out of there because they'd never had a chance to take a helicopter ride out. So for them to get a new playground was really something special for that group. And that was very fulfilling to see that done and see those kids playing on that playground.
Wow. And when you said the Grand Canyon, I was thinking, oh, did you bring things down on a burro? But I guess I didn't even think about a helicopter.
Yeah, and it was quite interesting. It was neat. It was an absolutely memorable and gratifying project to work on. So, but I don't know how my installers. I don't think my installers were real thrilled about doing that every single day, but they got through it.
Now there's another one, 𝐂𝐸𝐲𝐞. Talk about that.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So that was interesting. And I don't know if you've been, to 𝐂𝐸𝐲𝐞 or not. I had never heard of 𝐂𝐸𝐲𝐞 until we started working with them and made a drive up there. And it's pretty far out, towards Four Corners. And it was a huge, huge playground. And when you start working on big projects like that, there's all kinds of things you don't think of. I mean, obviously with the helicopter, we had to think of that, but this one, logistically, it was going to be multi-weeks working on a project. The nearest hotel, I think, was like 40, 50 miles away. So every day it meant, starting super early, ending pretty late in order to get it done in a good timeline. You don't even think about, packing food for lunch for the day. Where do you get it? There wasn't there's no convenience stores out in the middle of nowhere. So you really have to be intentional about how you're going to facilitate that. So we built, I think they ordered like 4 playgrounds from us. So we all built one area. The funny part about it, when we were quoting it, they sent me like 4 model numbers. And I said, okay, do you want to quote for each one, options for each one? They're like, no, we want to quote for all of them on the same quote. Like, okay. And they went with all of them. They got the quote and said, yep, we're ready. We'll do it. And we ordered it and put it in. And it was, I can't say it was a challenging project on the front end, but when it went to getting the crews together and scheduling it and making sure that they had all the supplies they needed, because there was no driving back. And the nearest, hardware store or Home Depot, a couple 100 miles away. So intentionality is everything when you're going to be doing a project of that nature. And it went well. So we were blessed with that project.
Jordan, I want to dive into that a little bit further because you said something that's pretty important, and that is that you were having to drive everything in. and be very intentional about working in this remote rural area, which is a stumbling block for a lot of our rural school leaders that can't get people to quote on different kinds of projects that they need to have for their students, whether it's new construction or it's infrastructure or technology buildup or a playground. What kinds of things would you recommend that leaders be thinking about if they wanted to put together some kind of a project and wanted to get people to bid on it?
Well, I think on the planning part, I think, again, intentionality is king when it comes to that. Don't rush any project. And I know that can be tricky sometimes because there'll be funding that might come in from a source that was unexpected, and there's deadlines on that funding. Mm-hmm. So you got to get the wheels sort of going quickly. And I get that, but take the time to make sure you do the research on who your playground partner is going to be. Make sure they're able to meet the needs that you have, not only in location, but for the kids in that school. And another big part of that is listening to kids, getting the kids involved. Let them take some ownership in the playground. Because what we'll do a lot of times when we'll go out and start doing our initial meetings, if we can do it at a time when the kids are there, we'll have them draw out their dream playground. Let's see what it looks like, and we'll see all kinds of cool little drawings with different types of slides and climbers and things. And then we'll try to incorporate those things into the design. So when we deliver renderings to the school, we can point out and say, see, there's a slide that you wanted or the type of climbers you guys wanted. There's ownership for them. They're like, this is now our playground. This isn't the school playground. This is our playground. And that just helps make the process more intentional. But I think it's important to talk about things, on the installation end regarding, hey, do we have deadlines for completion because of the funding? Do we have deadlines because of schools starting or ending? One of the misconceptions we do deal with, though, is because it's a school, a lot of schools feel we can't work on school time. We can only do summer break, spring break, winter break, fall break, all those. And in a perfect world, that would be the best thing to do. But unfortunately, it's construction, and construction has to happen all year round. And playgrounds aren't a quick construction project most times. And being able to communicate that we know how to have a safe environment during a school day and have construction going alongside teaching. We know how to be quiet when we need to be quiet. We know how to make sure that there's no kids around when we're doing critical things. We know how to put up fencing, things like that, and have those conversations up front so there's no misunderstandings on the back end. And I think expectations and, we have mutual expectations that match up is key to any successful project. So again, intentionality, communication, expectations, those types of things are really, really what's crucial on a playground project, especially when you're out in the middle of nowhere or far away from, a hardware store or a place to get concrete, a place to dump, rocks or the things that we're digging up. You've got to make sure you take all those things into account. So.
Right. And so I guess you've somewhat answered my next question, which was, do you approach design and installation of a playground in a rural area differently than you would in an urban or suburban area?
Yes, and we have to. Some of the things that we also take into account for is the length of, we talked a little bit about the length of the project and not realistically not being able to do it during a fall break or spring break just because of the distance. But we have to make sure that we are very on our end, that we plan well. So we don't want to provide a false expectation of when it's going to get done and then not be able to deliver that. And that's easy to happen because mistakes happen. All it takes is one mistake too. Construction, and I don't know if you've ever heard this, but you probably have. You've been doing this a long, long time. There's no perfect construction project. Everyone has a hitch in some way, and you can never forecast what's going to be. I wish I had a crystal ball because I'd use it. You just can't. We will do everything, our blue staking, we'll do our private locating. We'll make sure that we've looked everywhere for lines before we start digging. And I'll tell you what, almost, I won't say every time, but 1 out of 10 times we'll start digging and we'll hit some water line. We're like, this was not on any plan. It wasn't, we didn't private locate it. It wasn't there. It wasn't blue stake. Where'd it come from? We did a project in Tucson. It was actually, I worked with Kaboom on this project. And I'm sure you worked with Kaboom, but we were installing a playground and they did all their homework to make sure there was no lines out there. And when the first hole we dug, we hit a water main that sent a geyser up 30 feet. Nobody knew where to turn it off at. And we had 100 people showing up the next day for a build. It went for 3 hours straight. 3 hours straight because nobody knew what it was. Turns out during construction, somebody decided to cut a corner with the water main and run it through this area of field. And it wasn't on any plan. Nobody ever made a mention of it because it was done like 20 years prior. And it was a nightmare. They had to shut down the whole community build project for, it was like 3 or 4 weeks to let it dry out and drain out. And they had to relocate this main water line. It was interesting. So those types of things, they happen. And and it's being able to take everything in stride and say, okay, this has happened. How are we going to deal with it? How can we work together to get this fixed? And just, again, being able to have good communication and understanding of, we don't like it when these things happen, but we've got to work together because, like it or not, it happened. And now we've got to make it right. So, but having that kind of communication up front is huge.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, Jordan, once you've done the install and the project is complete, how do you support those rural schools in maintaining their playgrounds post-installation? Because many times human capital might be a concern. Maybe there's issues around weather or other challenges that might be unique to a rural setting that they might potentially need some support around.
That's a great question. And I've got a couple of different answers. The first answer is, so the manufacturers we work with already have amazing warranties. So if something breaks, they're gonna replace it. But then Play It Safe Playgrounds, we have something additional that really caters to the rural schools. We have a 5-year warranty. So if anything were to break and be replaced by the manufacturer under warranty within the first 5 years, our company will come out and deliver it to you and install it at no charge. So that way there's nobody in facilities that has to be like, hey, we're taxed. We either don't have the finances to pay for the installation or the manpower to install it ourselves. For the first 5 years, we make sure, and that usually anything negative that's going to happen is going to happen in the first 5 years. We want to make sure you're covered and you don't have to deal with that. Additionally, and this is something I forgot to mention regarding White River, something they had asked for and we did for them was a sort of a little maintenance seminar with the people on the grounds, things to look out for. What are the things that could go wrong? What happens if hardware gets loose? Just what a regimen may look like, a monthly or weekly regimen of inspecting your playground. We also do an inspection at the very tail end of an installation to make sure that, and it's a third party inspector that'll come out and look at the playground and make sure, hey, it was installed correctly. They have a whole list they put together. It was installed correctly. If there are any issues, they'll list them out and then we'll come out and fix them before the playground opens or soon after if it's not a huge safety issue. But we want to make sure that, because it's big to us, that we don't leave anybody high and dry after the playground is done, because this isn't a partnership during the playground process. It's a partnership forever. And we take that seriously.
Are there any partnerships or collaborations that Play It Safe Playgrounds has with other organizations to support rural schools?
Not in particular. We do have a partnership with Kaboom, and if they are identifying a school, we are one of the partners that they can work with. But we've also facilitated community build projects on our own and manage those projects from time to time. Not exclusively for rural schools, but we've done it for different, more urban areas. But it's something that's transferable to a rural area just as easily. It's the same process, same type of thing, and it's something we enjoy doing.
Fantastic. What advice would you give to a rural school leader that was considering either upgrading what they currently had or installing a brand new playground?
Again, take it slow. Get multiple opinions. I've gone to a few playgrounds before where they've been advised to take them out and replace them. Playgrounds are a little bit like cars, where if you see your neighbor get a new car, yours may be running just fine, but it's not as quite as shiny as it used to be. All of a sudden, you might get an inkling to go down to the dealership and get yourself a new car, even though the one you have still runs fine. I would say make sure you talk to multiple people to find out, do I really need to remove this playground, or can it just be upgraded a bit? Can it be painted just to put on some new color to it, or maybe to bring in some current safety standards or add a few things to it instead of investing in a whole new playground? Then it sounds like I'm talking you out of wanting to buy a playground. I'm just trying to be realistic. And we try to be very pragmatic with anybody we talk to and honest. Hey, this playground's got another 5 years of life. But if you're looking at maybe putting in all new rubber surfacing, which is a permanent thing, okay, well, now you want to take out that playground and put in a new playground, because surfacing is very expensive and you don't want to invest in a pour in place rubber surface for an old playground. It's like putting brand new tires on a car that's only going to make it another 50 miles. There's no sense in doing that. So we try to make sure that we talk all the things through. We look at, is this something that you need to phase? If we're going to phase it, how are we going to phase this playground? So talk to multiple people, really figure out what type of game plan that you want to put together. Dream big. I would always say dream big, because the playgrounds I see people dream big, a lot of times they're able to fill that and they don't think they are. Because then people start thinking outside the box. Well, maybe I can reach out for this funding that I didn't think was available, and all of a sudden it becomes available. And I've seen, 𝐂𝐨𝐲𝐲𝐫𝐢𝐠𝐡𝐭 I would have never thought about, the size of their playground. I would have never imagined they could do that, but they were dreaming big. And these different organizations that will dream big, a lot of times it'll come to fruition. Maybe not. And it's easy to scale down if we need to, but don't limit yourself. Let's have fun. Because these kids, they may not, like we said before, may not have a community playground to go to. This may be all they have as they're growing up. Let's give them something special if we can.
So, Jordan, one of the things I ask all of my guests, and I know that you're not living rural right now, but if you could define the expression rural advantage, what does that mean to you?
So for a guy that's had 7 kids, now multiple grandkids, to me, the rural advantage would be a smaller classroom, a more individualized attention, probably closer friendships, because you don't have so many kids that you're not able to connect with. You're able to connect with a smaller group, and to me, that's all about, I think it's the beautiful thing to smaller communities. It means closer relationships. So to me, rural advantage is about relationship when you really look at it. And I think that's, for me, it's really, really special.
That's a great answer. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want the listeners to know?
Gosh, no, just, play is fun. Don't be shy. Don't be shy from the different new play elements that are available, not just from our company, but all the manufacturers have some really, really neat things out there. Don't be scared of them. There's been a lot of research done on all the equipment. They run them through all kinds of testing, and they go through all kinds of safety data to make sure they're safe. So just be open to something new. For when I started in this industry, everything was what they call post and platform, where it was just climbers and slides, and that was it. Now you've got these nets and these crazy swings and all kinds of moving things that are, even new to me. And being in the industry, I'm just like, wow, how'd they think of that? That's incredible. And me as a parent, maybe 30 years ago, I might have been scared of. But being in the industry, I'm like, no, this has been intentional. They're thinking about how this helps kids and what this will do for a child's imagination when they get on the playground. Because for a child, it's not a playground. It's a castle. It's a rocket ship. It's a plane. To them, it's something completely different in their mind. And I think we need to cater to that and really inspire their imaginations.
Oh, that's hard to top. So, Jordan, you and your company are going to be joining us for the ARSA annual conference that's coming up in October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in Flagstaff, Arizona. And we're really looking forward to welcoming you and enjoying the cool weather. By that time, I think we're all going to need a break from the heat.
Yes, we will.
But I want to thank you for being one of our ARSA Platinum sponsors. We're so happy to have you on board, and we look forward to being able to have our leaders and our school communities take advantage of some of the things that you're offering for our students across the state in our rural communities.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. This has been a delightful conversation. It's really just been a privilege to be a part of this. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much for listening to The Rural Scoop. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe, or even leave us a comment. And be sure to follow on Twitter at Dr. Sadorf. That's Dr_SADORF, so that you never miss a new release. You can also check out previous episodes of The Scoop wherever you get your podcasts. Production support for The Rural Scoop is provided by Chattanooga Podcast Studios. Find out more at ChattanoogaPodcastStudios.com. See you next time for more great discussions about rural education.